And he says it again. How much more will we be delivered by his life? Okay. What does delivered mean? In your King James, for those of you with the King James, and probably some of the other versions, I didn't check, it says saved. It says saved. The Greek word there is sozo. To save, keep safe and sound, to rescue from danger or destruction. But when the word isn't used in the New Testament, isn't used as rescue, it's used to heal, which we see in the other definition here. And this definition is from the Greek, from Strong's Dictionary. To save a suffering one from perishing. Example, that is one suffering from disease, to make well, heal, restore to health. Okay? So let's go back to the verse. Therefore, since we have now come to be considered righteous by means of his bloody sacrificial death, how much more will we be delivered through him from the anger of God's judgment? For if we were reconciled with God through his Son's death when we were enemies, how much more will we be delivered by his life now that we are reconciled, now that we are justified? The being considered righteous, our justification, is our first salvation. Why do I say first? We're not going to go into the particulars here, but when you break down the theology and the study of salvation, theologians say there's 3 levels of salvation, and here we see 2 of them. We see 2 of them. The first one is our initial salvation. We trust, and we are considered righteous. And we are translated from the kingdom of darkness to the kingdom of light, like that. We get to change sides. So then, the second stage is what we're all living now. Theologians call it sanctification, the being made holy. And I think that's what this is alluding to here, is delivered. We're already saved. But it doesn't mean that we get it right every day. We still need to be saved, delivered from our sinful desires and our sinful tendencies and our bad habits that we've built up in our life over the years. And I believe that's what Paul's talking about here. It's God's purifying us. It's God saving us from ourselves. He sees Jesus when he sees us. He sees Jesus' blood. But we're still a work in progress because we're here on this corrupt planet. So what an encouragement here. It says, if we're already considered righteous by his death, how much more will be delivered by his life? And that's deliverance from today's mess-ups and troubles. That goes back to perseverance, to try again. God delivers us when we persevere. When we have troubles, we try again. And we endure and we try to get it right, and God will deliver you. He tells us to flee from evil. That's our impulse. Our requirement, what he requires of us, is to turn and run away. And he takes care of the rest. But we need to turn. We need to flee. And not only will we be delivered in the future, but we are boasting about God right now, because he has acted through our Lord Yeshua the Messiah, through whom we have already received that reconciliation. So that deliverance is for now. It's not for the future. It's not when we get to glory. It's for now. It's for every day. Paul now is going to go into why Jesus had to come to die. And this is one of those sections where Paul repeats himself like 3 or 4 times because he's really trying to get the point across, which is good. But it's late, so we're not going to read all of it. We're going to jump to verse 18. Why did Jesus have to come to die? Because of Adam. Verse 18. In other words, here he's summarizing what he just said in verses 12 through 17. Just as it was through one offense that all people came under condemnation, so it is through one righteous act that all people come to be considered righteous. For just as through the disobedience of the one man many were made sinners, so also through the obedience of the other man many will be made righteous. Jesus is often called, because of this passage, the second Adam. He came to correct, to show that a human could submit his will to God. What was Adam's crime? substituting his own will for God's will. Ultimately, that's what it comes down to. We could break it down. We say he had pride, and we see that because he was afraid to tell God that he'd eaten from the tree. He hid. Unbelief. And there, it could be unbelief that, he already knew what Eve had done. Eve was deceived. Adam wasn't. So maybe it was unbelief. He didn't trust that God could rectify the situation, that he would have mercy on Eve or whatever. I mean, we could ponder a bunch of what ifs, but that's not the point. Self-exaltation. If he believed the lie that the serpent told Eve, which was, oh, you will be like God. God doesn't want you to be like him, so eat from this tree. So self-exaltation. But ultimately, his crime was substituting his own will for God's will. And so Jesus' triumph, and here we are again back at Matthew 26. What did Jesus do in the Garden of Gethsemane? My Father, if it is possible, may this cup be taken from me. Yet, not as I will, but as you will. Right there, he undid what Adam did. By moving forward, he, in a sense, and I'm not talking theologically, we could argue points, but in a sense, reversed what Adam did there. Back, if you read the whole passage where Paul is talking about Adam and Jesus and comparing and contrast here, he says that the grace of gift through Jesus is greater than Adam's sin. Why? My opinion, and this is just my opinion, but Adam sinned not fully understanding the consequences. He went through, some people have tried to say that he's a type of Christ because he knew Eve had messed up, and so he ate from it to be with her, to make sure that he followed her. And that's one way to look at it. It's an interesting way to look at it. But he didn't understand the full ramifications, that he had just cursed everything that was going to issue from his line, every single human being that was going to follow. And yet Jesus obeyed, fully knowing the cost and the price to his person, to his body, and to his mind. And that's why Paul says that the gift of grace is greater than the sin, because death ruled through Adam, but life rules through Jesus, because Jesus knew exactly what he was about to endure, and he still said, not my will, but your will be done. We're going to jump back here to verse 17 a little bit, just because this popped out at me too. And then we'll wrap up. For if, because of the offense of one man, death ruled through the one man, how much more will those receiving the overflowing grace, that is the gift of being considered righteous, rule in life through the one man, Yeshua the Messiah? In chapter 6, when we get there, Paul will exhort us to be dead to sin and to not use God's grace as license to sin so that we can receive more grace. Because that is a heresy, and it pops up. I mean, obviously it popped up in Paul's day and it pops up today. So the key to succeeding in chapter 6's admonition is right here in this verse. I think it's interesting. Sin has ruled in our lives because Adam let it rule through him. Jesus ruled his own will and so gave us the power to rule our own will and reverse Adam's curse. Paul writes very flowery, and sometimes you have to take the extra words away. They make it more powerful, but to understand the crux of what he's saying, we're going to take some of these words away. How much more will those receiving the grace, that's us, rule in life? It's saying that we're going to rule in life through Jesus, through our perseverance, through Jesus' sacrifice and coming to undo what Adam did. He gives us the power to rule our wills and to align them under God, to do what Adam didn't do. That's the benefit, one of the benefits of trusting and believing God, is we get the power to rule our wills and to line them up with God and to obey.